Yo, what's going on, guys? This is BunnyMuffins. I have the new meta snapshot for 11.24. This patch had a ton of changes. I did not have time to do the breakdown of it because I just got back from vacation, but I did have time to update the meta snapshot, and there are it's pretty much completely flipped on its head, as you guys can imagine. Sorry I did not post yesterday. Literally just got back today. Normally I do it every single Friday. But just as a brief overview, in the S tier we have Syndicates. We'll get into that build in just a bit, but that is the Akali build that's going around right now. After that, we have Mutant Malzahar. It depends on the mutant trait, but a lot of them work well with Mutant Malzahar. If not, you could go the Protector Reroll comp with Kog'Maw carry, and those work really well too. So both mutant builds are I'd say they're both A or S tier, depending on what mutant trait that you get. Snipers, pretty good. I feel like it's kind of like a three-way tie between Snipers, Yone, and Chemtech Urgot in terms of the 4-cost carries right now. And that pretty much rounds up the S and A tier. Just one thing to note, guys, this patch is going to last one whole month, so I do expect S, A, B, and C tiers to flip around quite a bit. There also is a confirmed B patch for nerfing Cho'Gath, so that does affect both the mutant builds, but that comes, I believe, on Tuesday or Wednesday, so we'll see on that. I'll of course update the meta snapshot based on the feedback there. After that, we have in the B tier Socialite Colossus. Surprisingly, it's not Scion anymore. It's the Galio build that's going to be your main carry. It's a little weird, but if you get it, it works really, really well. But if you don't, you have to make sure you build other stuff. But we'll get into how to play all these comps later. Samira Reroll is still decent. Warwick Reroll, a little overrated. So I have it in the B tier right now. Same with Trundle. It got nerfed quite a bit. Innovator's got a big drop. I'd say they're not that great anymore and sitting in the B tier. Lissandra Reroll's pretty good. Did not have time to make the build. Tristana Reroll, again, another overrated reroll build. None of them quite hit as hard as the Katarina from last patch. Misfortune Reroll and then Katarina Reroll are rounding out in the B tier. There's all these rerolls, you could play them, but it's just rare that you do. You'd probably rather just play one of these top S and A tier comps. Onto the C tier, Arcanists, they're pretty bad now. Vex got nerfed too much, and she was the main carry of the comp. For example, you'd always itemize the Vex more than the Lux, or prioritize items on the Vex and the Lux, and since Vex got nerfed so much, the Lux buffs to blue buff didn't even matter, because blue buff is better on Lux now because it gives her more starting mana. But even that's not enough to keep Arcanists not in the trash can. But maybe someone discovers a new build. There were a lot of other Arcanist builds before until it really became meta. And sometimes you just need to play around a little bit to try to figure it out. After that, Yordle Veigar, I think that's in the C tier as well. And same with every other comp. But if you do see something that I don't have listed here, let me know down in the comments below, and we'll see if it makes it into the list next week or if I just forgot about it. But I'm pretty sure this is most of the comps that are being played right now. Let's get into how to play every single one of them. In the S tier, alone in the S tier, it even starts with an S. It is a Syndicate build. Akali, disgusting strong carry right now. People like playing it with Socialite. You could even go 3 Socialite if you want to take out 2 Syndicates and go to 3 Syndicate instead of 5. But I kind of like the 5 Syndicate version more because I like using the Shaco carry. There are 2 different ways to play this. I listed out down here. You could either do standard leveling to try to get the Akali, or you could do reroll Shaco 3 in order to go for a Shaco carry. And then if you hit Akali, great. If not, so be it, and do something else. What's really interesting about this build is that Akali and Braum, they use blue buff and Morello, so if you get a Twisted Fate early, he is the best item holder for blue buff and Morello Nomicon, because he just is going to carry your early game so hard. That's why you see Morello on Braum so much. It's not because it's an amazing item on him, it's just because when you're playing Syndicate, you're probably playing Twisted Fate, and since you have the Morello on Twisted Fate, you just slap it on Braum later, and then you just go and have a great time. In an ideal world, let's say you go into this comp and you just never got a Morello, I'd prefer full tank items on Braum, for example, but that's a very minor thing. On to the next build, we have the A tiers, Mutant Malzahar. Pretty much anything that buffs Malzahar is going to be a good mutant buff. So the defensive ones, such as Elderwood, is going to be good. The offensive ones, such as Voracious Appetite, is going to be good. The Execute one's pretty good. The reduction of mana cost is pretty good. And Malzahar, he uses any sorts of items work on him. I like having blue buff personally. JG's a good damage item, and then I like Archangels for the scaling, but you could play Morello, you could play Hextech Gunblade, you could play Giant Slayer, you could go 3 damage items and go 0 mana items. It doesn't really matter what you do. And then, of course, you build the Cho'Gath up front as a tank. There are also some like funny Cho'Gath builds where he goes attack damage, and that's only if you get, I believe it's called like hyper adrenal glands. It's the one where you get like bonus attack speed hits based on every attack. But sometimes people build AD Cho'Gath with that, and it does pretty well. Sion's actually like a good CC unit now, so I like playing him in place of other units to get the Colossus buff and to like just use him as like a CC bot. I like putting him around the center. Any of these 3 front squares work. Really just depends on where your opponents are, but you generally get good hits on one of these top 3 squares. Super late game, itemize Kai'Sa, and you're going to be golden. Let's go on to the next build. We have Sniper Jhin. Last Whisper, i.e. Giant Slayer, going to be amazing on him. I like using the Leona Braum tank line with like a Yuumi, and then rounded out with some Clockwork with Orianna. And I'm just running 2 Sniper right now. Because Assassins are still in the game, you don't want to go for the 4 or 6 Sniper builds. Everyone's playing a Kali, but if that ever gets nerfed and there are no more Assassins, you want to go back to like the high Sniper builds. But since there are Assassins both last patch and this patch, you want to stick with the 2 Sniper and just play the other random good units in order to round out your team. Next build we have is Yone, and similar to the Jhin build we just saw, you want to do standard leveling because both of these are 4 cost carries. I updated this build a little bit. 6 Challengers seems to be the best build for Yone. That does not mean Academy Yone is bad, it's just not as good as this one. So if you do have the choice of what comp to go for the 6 Challenger over the other variations. Items on him I like the most is QSS, Runons, and GA. I feel like getting the 2 defensive items with the Runons makes him so powerful because he just never gets interrupted and he just has a lot of uptime to do a ton of damage because you get most of the damage from the Challenger buff anyways, so you don't need to actually get full damage items on Yone to destroy a lot of teams. Secondary carry, Fiora or Kai'Sa works, and then tank items on like Braum. You don't have to do Braum Leona, you could do a lot of different other front lines as well, but these are my 2 favorite right now. Onto the next build, we have Urgot, another 4 cost carry. They changed Chemtech a bit, so going 5 Chemtech, there's a little more incentive to do that. However, I've just been doing the 4 Bruiser build with Vi, Zac, Tahm Kench, and Dr. Mundo because I feel like all the units are really, really good in this comp because Jinx likes Sister Twin Shot with the Urgot likes the Chemtech, and like Tahm Kench is just an awesome unit. Zac is an amazing unit. Mundo's good if he has items. So like they're just all good. You don't have to do this. You could go down to 2 Bruiser. You could go up to 6 Bruiser. You could go up to 5 Chemtech. You could do all sorts of different things, which is great now because before you really did not want to go for more than 3 Chemtech because it didn't really help that much. But right now you can do any of those combos. So it's just whatever you get in your game. Itemize Urgot first, and then once you get the Jinx, itemize her after, and then tank items on either Mundo, Tahm Kench, or Zac, depending on who you have 2-starred at the time. Next build we have is Protector Reroll. This one is the one with Kog'Maw carry, so you want to get Rageblade on Kog'Maw, and then any other 2 items work. They literally can be almost any offensive item, and like he'll be doing fine. If you have the attack damage mutant traits, go for the attack damage items. If you have the ability power ones, go for more like the Rageblade build and attack speed build. Those are really fun to do. Tank items on Kassadin, you could throw them on Garen as well, but yeah, really solid reroll build if you really like reroll. You just need like some good augments. So like getting good reroll augments, such as like ones that give you a lot of gold or free rolls is really nice. First aid is really good. And then of course any protector, mutant, or even like academy augments help, especially if you're going for like Katarina. If you're going like, if you get like a protector emblem early, Katarina is really good still with that. So it's something to consider if you're going for a reroll protector build. And then like, let's say you magically hit a free Katarina 2 with a protector emblem, it's worth going for. But other than that, I like going Kog'Maw more personally. So now onto Socialite Colossus. So you might be wondering, like, when am I going to play Galio? This is like the Clapio build, if that's what other people refer to it as. You may notice he has some funny items, but you might say like, oh, what if I build these items and then I try to go for this build and I don't hit? Lucky for you guys, Yone and Urgot all use these items. So if you go for a Yone or Urgot build and then you magically see a Galio, you can consider pivoting into this comp. I would not force the Socialite Galio comp because relying on a 5 cost is just not the best strategy in TFT. So only go for this comp if it comes naturally to you. Don't try to force it, but essentially it's just attack damage items on Galio, defensive items on Scion, and then 3 Socialite, just to buff up the damage on your dudes. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that comp. Pretty fun to watch. It's not my favorite, but it is fun to like watch and play. Imperial Samira Reroll. This is the same old build from before. You just go for Samira carry, Last Whisper, IE, tank items on some other people, and like get Samira 3-star, reroll at level 7, and yeah, just go from there. Next, like we've already played this build a bunch, so I won't go into it too much. Warwick Reroll. This is a new build I put in. Some people were playing it last patch, but it's really not that great. It's like good if you get a good game for it, but people are definitely over forcing this, if you know what I mean. Like if you get a good game for Warwick and then you reroll him, like you're gonna do really well. But if you're trying to like force this build every game, which is what a lot of people are trying to do, it's not as strong as like Katarina from last patch. So you don't need to be doing that. Warwick is only good if you get good items for him. So items on him is QSS, mandatory. I like Rageblade and Titans, but you could do like Static Shiv as well, Giant Slayer, stuff of that nature. And then here I have the 6 Challenger build. So what you want to do, you want to reroll at level 6 for Warwick and Quinn and maybe Camille. And then after that, you level up and then put in as many Challengers as possible while also playing the 3 Chemtech with Zac and Mundo, because Chemtech obviously buffs your Warwick. So once you have that set up, you are pretty much good to go. Just put in as many Challengers as possible to buff up Warwick as much as possible. Let's go on to the next build. We have Bruiser Trundle. Not too much has like, this comp got nerfed a bunch since last patch, but you could go any combination of like 2 to 6 Bruisers and 2 to 6 Scrap on this build. It did get nerfed heavily, so just be wary of it. That's why it dropped down to the B tier. But if you get a good reroll game, good augments for it, lots of Trundles, like definitely go for it. Like even if something's B tier, it still can do well. It just does well in fewer situations, which is why it's in the B tier. So if you see something in the B tier and you're like, man, I got first place, or like I lost to this comp, why is it in the B tier? That's why. It's like the S and A tier comps, they're more consistent, and like the B tier comps, but that doesn't mean they win all the time. Like a B tier comp can definitely win a lot of games. It's just you can't do it every game, you know? Like you could play, like you could probably play Urgot every single game and do pretty well, but you can't play like Trundle reroll every single game and expect to climb a lot, unless you're like completely cracked or something like that. Next build we have is Innovators. This build dropped a lot. It used to be like A, S tier, but now I put it in the B tier. It doesn't hit as hard anymore. They got affected a bit by the patch. So we'll have to see. Maybe there's a different way to play them, because before we were relying on like random carries. Maybe there's like a better carry that someone hasn't identified yet. Most people have been using Jhin, but we'll see what happens as time goes on. Next build we have is Yordle Tristana, another great reroll build. You want to go Last Whisper IE on Tristana. Third item doesn't really matter. It could be Giant Slayer, Hand of Justice, Rageblade. All of those are pretty good. I like putting a lot of tank items on Poppy. And then you just reroll at level 6 for Tristana 3, and then you can also get Lulu, Blitz, and Poppy along the way. And then after that, you just level up, throw in more synergies. I like doing the Clockwork Sniper combo, and then adding in Janna, of course, because she gives like Scholar and Enchanter. You run a lot of Enchanters in this build. It's just really weird how that works, because Orianna's a Clockwork, Lulu's a Yordle, so it just complements each other really easily. Next up, we have Sniper Misfortune. Like, again, if you get a lot of Misfortunes, you have good items for her. You might as well go for it, but I would not force this build. This build hasn't really changed much in the past couple of weeks. So I'll just skip over this since we went over this a lot already. You essentially just go stabilize on level 6 on 3-2, and then go 7, and then slow roll for MF3. After that, Assassin Katarina, still okay. Obviously not as good as before. You just go to 3-2, roll down for Cat 2, and then econ back up, roll for Cat 3, and just go from there. I would not do this build as often as you did last patch, though, because it did get nerfed really, really badly, but it's still playable. You know, it's just not the best thing in the world anymore. But if you get a lot of Katarinas, go ahead and go for it. C tier, Arcanist Lux. Again, like Vex just got hit too hard. Someone's gonna have to figure out a new way to play Arcanist. Maybe you play Lux in Academy. Who really knows? We'll have to find out. Yordle Veigar, yeah, just not that great. Tristana build's probably better if you want to play Yordles. And that is going to be it for this week. Let's go back into the summary. Again, big patch. Let me know if you guys want me to still do the patch rundown, because it's been like a couple days already. Maybe I release it when they release a B patch, but in the S tier syndicates, mutants really good depending on the trait. All the forecasts are pretty good, and then in the B tiers, like all the reroll stuff, but it doesn't mean they're bad if they're in the B tier. But hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll be coming out with like regular content updates starting today again, because I'm back from vacation. So if you are new to the channel and you saw this video for best comps for 11/24, do subscribe below. And if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. I'll be going back to the regular schedule like starting now. So hopefully daily uploads, if not like at least 5 videos a week. But yeah, I'll see you guys soon.